Stop calling this a rap feud, because a rap feud does not leave fingerprints across gambling companies, deposition rooms, anonymous websites, crisis lawyers, artist platforms, and court filings together. Stop calling this ordinary jealousy, because simple jealousy does not keep dragging the same power centers into the same messy orbit. A colder possibility is sitting in plain sight. Drake may not be fighting a diss record, a lawsuit, or a media cycle. Drake may be walking through a coordinated pressure maze where business rivalry, legal aggression, reputational erosion, and timing start feeling designed. Drake keeps landing number ones. Drake keeps dominating cultural conversation. Drake keeps turning every release into a streaming event. And Drake keeps staying attached to Stake, a brand that lives inside a very different gambling ecosystem from the Fanatics world tied to Jay-Z. Jay-Z, meanwhile, sits near a corporate empire that touches music, sports, influence, policy circles, and regulated betting interests. Put Drake on one side. Put Jay-Z adjacent infrastructure on the other side. Then watch what starts appearing between both sides. Lawsuits mentioning Stake and streaming manipulation, depositions where Drake, cryptocurrency, and betting questions suddenly surface, anonymous attacks aimed at Larry Jackson and Gamma, repeated mentions of Reed Smith, whispers around Quinn Emanuel, and a completely separate Tony Buzbee war where allegations of coordinated retaliation start sounding strangely familiar. Nothing in this story is proven as a criminal conspiracy. Nothing in this story proves Jay-Z ordered a secret operation. Nothing in this story gives a final courtroom verdict. But a final courtroom verdict is not what makes this story explosive. The explosion comes from pattern density. The explosion comes from recurrence. The explosion comes from names, entities, and incentives repeating so often that coincidence starts sweating. Start with the motive nobody wants to say out loud. Drake is not just a superstar. Drake is a commercial ecosystem. Drake sells attention, taste, audience movement, platform heat, gambling visibility, and gravity. Every Drake release pushes traffic. Every Drake controversy prints attention. Every Drake cosign can shift millions of dollars in downstream value. Jay-Z is not just an artist either. Jay-Z is a boardroom symbol, a gatekeeper symbol, a legacy power symbol, and a businessman invested in structures Drake keeps disrupting. When a disruptor gets too big, old power rarely screams first. Old power usually audits, pressures, litigates, isolates, and destabilizes. Music overlap. Gambling overlap. Law firm overlap. Reputation war overlap. Media pressure overlap. Artist platform overlap. Reform and institution overlap. Look at the Stake issue. Drake's public association with Stake has always carried controversy because Stake's core crypto casino model lives outside the clean image of a traditional fully regulated American sportsbook. Fanatics, the Jay-Z connected side of the betting world, lives inside a regulated ecosystem with a different public posture. That difference matters. If Drake becomes the celebrity face of a controversial gambling universe while Jay-Z sits beside a more institutionally digestible gambling brand, a direct commercial tension exists before any lawsuit is filed. Add allegations that Stake money or crypto features were somehow connected to artificial stream inflation claims against Drake, and the story stops looking like entertainment gossip. The story starts looking like brand warfare disguised as legal process. Now ask the question that should make every viewer pause. Why do gambling complaints suddenly start dragging in Spotify numbers and botting accusations? Why would a case centered on alleged casino losses start reaching into music stream allegations at all? That jump is bizarre unless somebody wants to attach a second stain to the first stain. Illegal gambling is one problem. Alleged fake streams is another problem. Fuse both together, and Drake stops looking like a celebrity endorser with messy optics and starts looking like a manipulator whose cultural dominance itself can be questioned. That fusion creates legal risk and narrative risk. Because public opinion never waits for trial. Public opinion hears a repeated allegation 5 times and starts calling the allegation a pattern. Public opinion sees enough smoke and forgets to ask who rented the smoke machine. Cases in Virginia. Cases in New Jersey. Lawyers connected to Impressa. Lawyers with prior Reed Smith ties. Reed Smith appearing again because Reed Smith has represented Roc Nation and Desiree Perez in other matters. Reed Smith appearing again because creators have long claimed certain takedown activity tied to Roc Nation passed through Reed Smith channels. Reed Smith appearing again in an entirely separate civil RICO fight involving another matter where a judge refused to shove the dispute quietly into arbitration and let discovery move forward. Civil RICO is not criminal RICO. A filing is not a conviction. Allegations are not findings. But repeated legal smoke around a major firm connected to a major entertainment power network matters, especially when that same firm or former firm personnel keep surfacing near people and campaigns touching Drake's orbit. That is not proof, closure, or indictment. That is pattern pressure. A deposition about Megan Thee Stallion somehow opens doors into Drake, stake, and cryptocurrency questions. Pause on that. A deposition is not random chatter. A deposition is targeted information gathering. Somebody thought those subjects belonged in the room. Somebody believed those subjects connected to a larger frame worth preserving under oath. Then months later, similar themes surface again in litigation touching Drake. That timing does not convict any. Expose direction. Somebody kept trying to drag the spotlight toward the same cluster. Drake, betting, crypto, influence, manipulation. Larry Jackson built Gamma around artist ownership, leverage, and independence. Drake publicly backed Gamma during the Iceman build-up. Then anonymous websites suddenly appear attacking Larry Jackson and Gamma with claims of fraud, botting, and artificial streams. Larry Jackson denies the allegations and reportedly goes legal to identify whoever sat behind those attacks. DJ Academics later says Larry Jackson reached out because the attacks felt similar. Similar to what? Similar to the same dirty weather pattern already circling Drake. That is when the story stops looking like isolated problems and starts feeling like synchronized weakening. If Drake-adjacent platforms, and independent media allies all begin collecting the same accusations at roughly the same time, the target may not be one person. The target may be an ecosystem growing outside legacy permission. This may not be a celebrity war. This may be a distribution war. A distribution war starts by contaminating trust around every lane feeding the song. Gambling, streaming, media support, ownership alternatives, and public perception. If enough lanes look dirty, the artist starts looking dirty even without a final win in court. Tony Buzbee separately accused Roc Nation and Jay-Z-linked lawyers of participating in a coordinated retaliation campaign after Tony Buzbee represented a woman accusing Jay-Z of sexual assault. Jay-Z denied the allegations. The assault claim was dismissed with prejudice. But the war did not disappear. Tony Buzbee later alleged efforts to recruit former clients against Tony Buzbee. Read that again beside the Drake story. Lawsuits popping up. Pressure campaigns popping up. Recruitment allegations popping up. Enemies of a powerful network allegedly finding new problems from the side doors instead of the front gate. Different facts, different cases, different stakes, but the same emotional silhouette keeps forming. Pressure the opponent from angles that exhaust money, credibility, and focus. That is why viewers keep whispering one word even when responsible analysis demands caution. RICO. Not because viewers have proof of a criminal enterprise. Not because a social media thread can replace a federal case. Not because every overlap equals unlawful coordination. Viewers keep whispering RICO because ordinary people know what repeated structure feels like when repeated structure starts showing up in unrelated rooms. Jay-Z co-founded Reform Alliance. Desiree Perez sits on the board. Reform Alliance worked in Virginia on probation reform that became law. Some plaintiffs later involved in Virginia litigation had histories touching Virginia's criminal justice or probation systems. No evidence currently proves Reform Alliance recruited any plaintiff for litigation against Drake. That sentence needs to stay clear. But the geography matters. The network matters. The access points matter. Reed Smith participated in at least one reform-related legal service event. Attorneys later tied to Impressa had Reed Smith history. Again, no single dot proves a hidden hand. But this story is not powered by one dot. This story is powered by how many dots insist on living in the same neighborhood. Direct attacks can fail against Drake because direct attacks energize Drake's fanbase and make every chart win look bigger. Indirect corrosion works better because indirect corrosion is slower, colder, and easier to deny. Indirect corrosion says, never punch the face if poisoning the mirror will do the job. Poison the mirror, and every reflection, number, ally, and success starts carrying suspicion. That is why botting allegations matter so much. A botting allegation does not only attack numbers. A botting allegation attacks legitimacy. Drake can beat an opponent on the charts and still lose ground in the culture if enough people start saying the charts were machine-fed. Drake can dominate a release cycle and still look weaker if enough people start saying gambling money, crypto funnels, or shady back-end tactics inflated the impact. Even an unproven allegation can bruise a brand if the allegation lands in enough legal paperwork, enough headlines, enough creator conversations, and enough whispered recaps. Not the mythic Jay-Z, the billionaire legend Jay-Z, or the carefully curated statesman image Jay-Z. This story points toward Jay-Z as a possible center of converging interests, not proven commands. That distinction matters. Jay-Z does not need a signed memo, a leaked audio file, or a smoking text thread to become relevant here. Jay-Z becomes relevant because Drake's rise threatens lanes linked to people, institutions, and capital pools that intersect with Jay-Z's world. Roc Nation, Fanatics, Reed Smith, Desiree Perez, institutional relationships, legal aggressiveness, influence across entertainment and business. Those ingredients create a theater where Drake may feel less like a rival artist and more like a destabilizing external power. And when a destabilizing external power refuses to shrink, the system often answers with process instead of spectacle. Process looks boring until process starts piling up. A deposition question here, an anonymous site there, a lawsuit here, a takedown request there, a legal theory here, a whisper campaign there, a former firm connection here, a discovery fight there. One piece looks survivable. 20 pieces feel like suffocation. That is why Drake's reported confidence about subpoenaing Roc Nation figures matters. Drake is not talking like somebody merely offended by gossip. Drake sounds like somebody looking at the architecture and recognizing the blueprint lines under the wallpaper. Confidence like that can come from bluffing. Confidence like that can also come from seeing enough internal alignment to believe discovery could become a bloodbath. Discovery is the nightmare in stories like this because discovery does not care about polished branding, legacy status, or elite friendships. Discovery cares about records, contacts, drafts, timing, coordination, and the tiny administrative traces powerful people forget to bury. That is why the separate Reed Smith civil RICO matter matters, even though the underlying facts belong to a different battlefield. When a judge declines to force a sprawling dispute into arbitration and allows discovery to proceed, the message is simple. Somebody wanted privacy, and the court said no. That does not prove Reed Smith did anything connected to Drake. But that outcome adds heat to the larger atmosphere because the same firm name keeps hovering near conversations about power, secrecy, and aggressive legal positioning. A firm can survive headlines. A firm starts sweating when headlines become document requests. Drake represents scale without deference. Drake represents modern direct-to-audience gravity. Drake represents the possibility that a superstar can bend platforms, activate massive streaming response, monetize controversy, and keep moving without kneeling to old definitions of approval. Jay-Z represents something different. Consolidation, respectability, institutional fluency, elite access, and a model where power sits not just in art but in networks. Put those two energies in the same era and friction is inevitable. But friction alone does not explain why the same side characters keep appearing. That is why this story refuses to die. Reed Smith keeps appearing. State keeps appearing. Fanatics keeps appearing. Gamma keeps appearing. DJ Academics keeps appearing. Tony Buzbee keeps appearing. Desiree Perez keeps appearing. Questions about recruitment keep appearing. Questions about botting keep appearing. Questions about coordinated pressure keep appearing. That repetition is the hook, the dread, and the real script. And if this theory is wrong, the pattern still reveals something ugly about the modern entertainment machine. The modern entertainment machine no longer fights only with records, tours, interviews, and radio. The modern entertainment machine fights with legal costs, reputational contagion, platform narratives, investor narratives, and strategic ambiguity. In that machine, innocence is expensive to prove, and suspicion is cheap to distribute. That reality alone should terrify every artist watching this story. Because Drake has money, lawyers, reach, and leverage. If somebody with Drake's armor can still be boxed in by layered allegations, anonymous attacks, and recurring institutional shadows, imagine what happens to artists with 1/10 of Drake's protection. What if the real objective is not to beat Drake in court? What if the real objective is not even to jail Drake or bankrupt Drake? What if the real objective is to make Drake's dominance look synthetic, ethically radioactive, and legally unstable at the exact moment new artist control models start threatening old power centers? That objective would explain almost everything. That objective would explain why the attacks feel wider than one incident. That objective would explain why associates keep getting touched. That objective would explain why botting accusations travel beside gambling accusations. That objective would explain why anonymous smears matter. That objective would explain why independent media voices get dragged into the weather. destroy belief in the ecosystem, and the ecosystem starts collapsing itself. This case feels bigger than Drake and Jay-Z. This case feels like a live test of how elite conflict really works in the algorithm era. No dramatic mafia meeting, no villain monologue, no cinematic confession, just paperwork, optics, proxies, relationships, and precision-timed pressure until the target starts suffocating inside public doubt. And public doubt is the perfect weapon because public doubt lets every participant deny intent. Public doubt lets business rivals say coincidence. Public doubt lets law firms say routine representation. Public doubt lets media figures say commentary. Public doubt lets anonymous operators hide behind a screen. Public doubt lets everybody touch the fire while claiming no contact with the flame. So the next time another lawsuit appears, another anonymous smear appears, another botting claim appears, another deposition excerpt appears, or another Jay-Z adjacent name quietly wanders into Drake's weather system, do not ask only whether one allegation is true. Ask the more dangerous question. Who benefits if every road around Drake starts looking rigged? Who benefits if Drake's wins stop feeling clean? Who benefits if Drake's partners look contaminated? Who benefits if artist independence starts looking fraudulent? Who benefits if the audience begins to treat dominance as manipulation instead of momentum? Because once that answer gets honest, this stops sounding like celebrity gossip. This starts sounding like a systems war hiding inside entertainment headlines. Systems wars are never loud at the beginning. Systems wars look petty before systems wars look historic. Systems wars hide inside side stories until side stories start touching every major node in the same empire map. Drake may be paranoid. Drake may be completely right. Jay-Z may be nowhere near operational command. Jay-Z may sit at the center of converging incentives that never need a direct order. Reed Smith may be ordinary legal overlap. Reed Smith may be the recurring hallway where too many doors keep opening. Tony Buzbee may be running a separate fight. Tony Buzbee may be exposing a tactic pattern bigger than one feud. No verdict exists yet, but no serious observer can call this normal anymore. And that is the real reason this story has heat. Not because the internet loves conspiracy. Not because fandom loves drama. Because once business motive, legal recurrence, reputational sabotage, and strategic timing start stacking on the same board, instinct starts recognizing design before proof can catch up. If discovery ever rips the ceiling open, the fallout will not stay inside rap. The fallout will hit law firms, brand alliances, executive reputations, gambling narratives, artist platform wars, and the entire myth that elite entertainment conflict is mostly about music. If discovery never arrives, the pattern still leaves a scar because the pattern already taught the public how modern power can move without ever stepping fully into the light. So forget the lazy headline that frames this as Drake versus Jay-Z, ego versus ego, Titan versus Titan. A smaller headline misses the bigger horror. The bigger horror is the possibility that a networked age can wound an artist through 1,000 professionally deniable cuts while every blade insists the blade was never in the room. And if Drake really does drag Rock Nation-linked figures into subpoenas, if more records surface, if more overlaps harden, and if more people in Drake's orbit keep reporting variations of the same attack pattern, the industry may finally have to admit something ugly. The cleanest suits may be standing closest to the mud. That is why this story matters. That is why this story keeps mutating. That is why this story feels unfinished. And that is why Drake may not be fighting a rival at all. Drake may be fighting an invisible boardroom weather machine built to make every Drake victory feel suspicious before the next Drake victory even arrives. Once that possibility enters the room, every coincidence starts looking employed. Because once an industry learns that doubt can be outsourced, every superstar becomes vulnerable to ghost-written suspicion. Drake just happens to be the biggest live case study. Jay-Z just happens to be the most tempting gravity source for every recurring connection. And until paperwork closes every gap, the smartest reading is not certainty. The smartest reading is pressure, pattern, motive, and a board full of moving pieces still pretending not to touch.